the most painful restaurant deaths ever. I need to stop watching this gruesome shit, bro.
The 8 Immortals restaurant murders incident. In August 1985, the quiet streets of Macau became the setting for one of the most brutal restaurant massacres ever recorded. Huang Jiheng was a 29-year-old gambler, known in local circles for his mounting debts and increasingly desperate behavior. The Wang family owned and operated the 8 Immortals restaurant, a popular establishment where locals gathered for traditional Cantonese cuisine. They had made the mistake of lending Huang 600,000 patakas, approximately $75,000 in today's currency. On August 4th, Huang entered the restaurant after closing time. Security footage later showed him arriving at 11:47 p.m. carrying a bag containing knives and rope. The Wang family was finishing their end-of-day routine when Huang confronted them about the debt. Within minutes, the confrontation escalated. Huang methodically killed each family member, starting with the patriarch, 62-year-old Wang Hong. Some were stabbed with kitchen knives found on the premises. Others were strangled with electrical cords. Medical examiners later determined that several victims remained conscious during the initial attacks, aware of family members being murdered nearby. After killing all 10 family members, including 2 children aged 4 and 6, Huang began the process of dismemberment. Using butcher tools from the restaurant kitchen, he separated limbs from torsos, working through the night. He packed body parts into plastic bags and restaurant food containers. Between 3:30 a.m. and 5:15 a.m., Huang made multiple trips to dispose of the remains. Some were thrown into the ocean off Macau's eastern shore. Others were placed in dumpsters throughout the city. Police discovered the first remains on August 6th when a restaurant customer reported the establishment mysteriously closed. Huang was arrested 3 days later while attempting to flee to mainland China. Popeyes shooting incident. On April 16, 1994, the Popeyes restaurant in Gadsden, Alabama was preparing to close for the night. 4 employees were completing their final tasks inside the fast food establishment. At 10:47 p.m., Robert Bryant Melson and Kahuatamak Hinriki Parida entered through the unlocked front door. Melson, 23, carried a .45 caliber handgun. Parida, 17, served as lookout. The employees immediately recognized the danger. Bryant Bailey, 23, tried to reason with the intruders. His co-workers, Nathaniel Baker, 17, Tamika Collins, 18, and Daryl Collier, 23, stood frozen behind the counter. Melson ordered all 4 to move toward the walk-in freezer at the back of the restaurant. Yes, security footage later showed the employees complying, their hands raised. At 10:52 p.m., all 4 were forced inside the 8x10-foot freezer. Witnesses in a nearby parking lot reported hearing multiple gunshots in rapid succession. Damn. Inside the freezer, Melson fired 7 shots at close range. Bryant Bailey was hit in the neck and chest. Nathaniel Baker received bullets to his head and torso. Tamika Collins was shot 3 times in the chest. Each died within seconds from catastrophic blood loss and organ damage. Daryl Collier was shot in the face, but the bullet followed an unusual path, exiting without hitting vital structures. He collapsed among his dead co-workers, bleeding profusely but conscious. The robbers took $2,100 from the register and fled. For 15 minutes, Collier lay among the bodies in the freezing cold, fighting shock and blood loss. When police arrived at 11:23 p.m., they found him still alive. Melson was executed by lethal injection on June 8, 2017. Parida remains on death row after murdering a fellow inmate in 1999. A fatal gust of wind incident. On January 19, 2023, Lillian and Lloyd Curtis were driving through Elizabethtown, Kentucky. The couple, married for 58 years, were returning from a doctor's appointment. Lloyd, 77, was behind the wheel of their silver Honda sedan. Lillian, 72, sat in the passenger seat. At 1:48 p.m., they pulled into the parking lot of a Denny's restaurant on Mulberry Street. The day was unusually windy, with gusts reaching 70 miles per hour. Meteorologists later called it one of the strongest wind events in the region that year. As the Curtis vehicle parked in a space directly beneath the restaurant's sign, a powerful gust struck the area. The Denny's sign, a 1.3-ton metal and plastic structure mounted on a 20-foot pole, had passed its most recent inspection just 3 months earlier. Engineers would later determine that the sign's mounting bolts had been properly installed. The wind itself was the only factor. At 1:50 p.m., security cameras captured the moment the sign broke free from its mounting. It took less than 2 seconds to fall. The sign crashed directly onto the Honda's passenger side, crushing the roof down to the seat level. Lillian Curtis suffered an immediate catastrophic head injury. First responders arrived within 4 minutes, but found her without pulse or respiration. Damn. Lloyd Curtis was conscious when paramedics reached him. The impact had caused severe internal injuries and crushing trauma to his lower body. He was trapped in the vehicle for 37 minutes while rescue workers cut through the wreckage. At the University of Louisville Hospital, doctors determined he had suffered multiple organ failures. Despite 3 surgeries the next 4 days, Lloyd Curtis's condition deteriorated. On January 23rd at 3:15 p.m., he died from complications of his injuries. Mistaken for homeless, left to die incident. On August 3, 2025, Jesse Mobley Jr. entered the Capitol Steakhouse in downtown Houston, Texas. The 34-year-old construction worker had just finished his shift and was meeting friends for dinner. At 7:42 p.m., security cameras captured Mobley suddenly clutching his chest while standing near the bar. He collapsed onto the floor seconds later. Other diners immediately moved away, unsure what was happening. Restaurant staff approached Mobley as he lay on the polished marble floor. The manager, 41-year-old Thomas Weller, checked for signs of intoxication but made no attempt to assess Mobley's medical condition. At 7:45 p.m., Weller instructed 2 servers to remove Mobley from the premises. Security footage showed the servers dragging Mobley by his arms across the restaurant floor. Mobley was conscious during this time, attempting to speak and clearly in distress. His medical emergency was later determined to be a severe cardiac arrhythmia, a treatable condition if medical help had been summoned. Instead of calling 911, the restaurant staff carried Mobley to a service exit at the rear of the building. At 7:51 p.m., they placed him on the ground next to garbage dumpsters in an unlit alley. The temperature that evening was 94 degrees. For 28 minutes, Mobley remained in the alley, occasionally moving his arms and trying to call for help. No staff member checked on his condition. A delivery driver discovered Mobley at 8:19 p.m. and called emergency services. Paramedics arrived at 8:26 p.m. and found Mobley without a pulse. Despite resuscitation attempts, he was pronounced dead at 8:47 p.m. Autopsy results confirmed that immediate medical intervention could have saved his life. The surveillance footage, obtained by local news stations 4 days later, showed staff members laughing as they returned from the alley. Tina's Burritos Factory incident. On July 12, 2025, Maria Delgado arrived for her night shift at Tina's Burritos Factory in Vernon, California. The 19-year-old had been working at the industrial food processing plant for just 6 months. Her responsibilities included cleaning the massive food processors after production ended. At 11:30 p.m., the main production line shut down. Workers began their cleaning protocols, a process that normally took 2 hours. The primary food processor was an Italian-made Gastromac industrial mixer, standing 7 feet tall with a mixing capacity of 500 pounds. Company protocol required the machine to be fully powered down and locked out before cleaning. Security camera footage later revealed that at 11:47 p.m., Maria entered the cleaning area alone. For unknown reasons, the machine had not been properly shut down. The electronic lockout tag, designed to prevent accidental activation, was missing from the control panel. At 11:52 p.m., Maria climbed onto a stepladder to reach inside the upper chamber of the processor. She was using a scraper to remove dried food residue from the mixing blades. 3 minutes later, another worker in a different part of the facility accidentally activated the machine's remote start function. The mixer's industrial-grade motor engaged immediately. The stainless steel mixing blades began rotating at 120 RPM. Maria had no time to react. Her right arm was caught between the blades, pulling her entire body into the machine. Workers nearby heard her screams and rushed to the area. By the time they reached the emergency shutoff button, 27 seconds had passed. When emergency services arrived at 12:14 a.m., they found Maria's body completely entangled in the machinery. Medical examiners later determined she remained conscious for approximately 15 seconds after initial entrapment. Death occurred from massive trauma and blood loss. Investigators discovered that the machine's safety interlock had been deliberately disabled 6 weeks earlier to increase production speed. Palermo's Pizza Factory incident. On September 17, 2025, Robert Chiron reported for his regular shift at Palermo's pizza manufacturing facility in West Milwaukee. The 45-year-old maintenance technician had worked at the factory for 8 years. His job involved ensuring the automated production line ran smoothly. At 10:15 a.m., Chiron responded to a minor stoppage in the dough forming section. The robotic arm responsible for stretching pizza dough had detected an irregularity and automatically paused. This particular machine was a KR420 industrial robot manufactured by KUKA Robotics. It stood 12 feet tall with a reach of 9 feet and could exert 2.5 tons of pressure at maximum extension. Company protocol required all technicians to remain outside the safety cage while the robot was in diagnostic mode. Security footage showed Chiron entering the cage at 10:17 a.m. He carried standard diagnostic tools and approached the base of the robot. What happened next was captured by multiple cameras. At 10:19 a.m., Chiron leaned forward to check a sensor on the robot's main hydraulic line. The machine, still in diagnostic mode, suddenly reactivated. Its massive arm swung in an unexpected pattern, pinning Chiron against the metal frame of the dough-forming table. The force was immediate and catastrophic. The 2,200-pound arm crushed Chiron's torso between 2 metal surfaces. Workers on the production floor heard the impact and his initial cries for help. 3 employees rushed to the emergency stop button, but the damage was already done. Medical examiners later determined that Sharon suffered complete crushing of his chest cavity. Major blood vessels to his heart were severed instantly. He remained conscious for approximately 30 seconds, unable to breathe as his lungs were compressed. When emergency services arrived at 10:28 a.m., Sharon was already deceased. And investigators discovered that a software update installed the previous night had created a critical error in the robot's safety protocols. If you want to see more videos like this,